Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here on Nantucket. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney. I work at a firm called Myrick O'Connell back in America in central Massachusetts. There are 70 of us, so everybody gets to do what they like, and I like doing elder law. So originally, I started doing these shows a few years ago thinking they'd be about law, but they never were. They were always really about what you need to know as a senior. And specifically, if you've been to any of my presentations and you've seen my friends Frank and Mary, whose goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard, what you need to know as a senior in Nantucket, if that's what you want to do in Nantucket. You just want to stay home and you want to know who are the people you need to know and what are the programs you need to know about to be happily in your home here on Nantucket. And so I recruited as my co-host Alison Forsgren, because she just seemed to know everybody, and I had known her from the Friends of Our Island Home Board. And she always ends up finding these great people to be talking about current issues. There are several of them right now. There's town meeting coming up. There's big things happening. And so Alison has a great guest, so thank you, Alison.
You're welcome.
Who's here today?
I would like to introduce you to Dawn Holdgate. She is Vice Chair of the Select Board, former chair, and also on the Senior Building Committee. Is that what you called it?
The Senior Center Work Group.
Work group.
Yeah.
And so...
And she's not stressed right now because she's not running for re-election.
No,
right?
she's not.
This is all good. This is good. But the town meeting is coming.
The town meeting is coming,
Yes.
and
April 1st.
April 1st at 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes. Please,
Monday,
everyone,
April 1st.
Please, everyone go. But Dawn, we'd like to ask you a few questions about the current plans for the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some
Yep,
vacillation, so...
we've made some progress in getting onto a path. We had a number of meetings where we talked about potential sites, and Sherburne Commons was the most viable. It's town property. The Sherburne Commons organization is very interested in having it on the property. We had reserved a certain portion of that land for a potential future island home, which the community has decided is not the direction that they want to go in. And it would be an amendment to the lease to build a senior center there in a similar location as to where the island home might have gone.
An amendment to the lease between the town and
Sherburne Commons.
Because all of that land is just leased land?
It
Wow.
is, yes. It's a long-term lease.
It's a long-term lease.
Mm-hmm.
And so have the selectmen kind of really decided that is the right place?
Well, that's the recommendation of the work group. Then a bit of a wrench got thrown in it in a potentially very positive way, where the Nantucket Inn became an option, because that was identified as a place they want to sell, and it was identified as a place that could fulfill some of our affordable housing needs. And then there's that main building. And when we went through the needs of a senior center, it checked most of the boxes, if not all. But at the moment, that is unfortunately off the table. So we'll continue on the path of a new facility at Sherburne Commons.
I see. And I'm just curious, once again, as an outlander, because I remember being here a few weeks ago and that was on the table. So is it potentially ever going to come back on?
It is potential. The owners have another potential buyer that they were more interested in pursuing and getting a clear answer if that was viable before continuing with the town. But with town meeting looming on April 1st, we couldn't continue our due diligence without more of a commitment from the owners. We'll have a better idea by the end of the month where they stand, but at this stage it would be a fall town meeting.
I see.
In terms of appropriations.
And so the Nantucket Inn is not off the table.
It's not off the table, but it's a very unknown at this time. And we had always discussed that we would still continue with a planning phase on the Sherburne Commons site, because we didn't know if Nantucket Inn would pass, if it was definitely what people would want for the senior center. It fit a lot of the needs.
They've got really good reviews with people who went through the building.
Yeah.
Which was nice.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm just curious, can you just kind of talk about, I know that Julie Fitzgerald was with us a while ago. But can you just kind of talk about kind of your sense of what would end up being in the senior center? I know you were kind of on that committee.
Yes, Julie's been the chair of our committee.
Because I visited the current one a few times. It is a little crowded. Right?
It's far too small
Yeah.
for the community's needs. You really can't have multiple things going on at once. So we've looked at a number of the facility plans for off island and what they incorporated into them. And there's just a lot more, like a dedicated exercise room, multiple spaces where you can have meetings, where there's dedicated game rooms where everything stays set up. Right now, everything gets broken down and put back up, and broken down and put back up for the current senior center. Just even like a lobby where people can just sit and chat or read a book, but
And
it's
offices
a place
and, storage. There's so many.
There's
things
so many things that they
lacking.
need. So right now, the facility is around 3,000 square feet,
Yeah,
I think.
I think so.
And I mean, we're definitely looking at something 10 or more. If you're going to build, you want to build it to
You don't want to build it twice.
the future,
Right, yeah.
at least some projection into the future's needs. And there's been talk of other potential community uses that could be incorporated when it's not solely dedicated to senior center programming, that there might be some opportunity for meetings in the evenings if there's not dinners going on, or if there's a totally separate room that's not being used evenings, weekends. There's been talk about whether it could be built in such a way that there could be some emergency shelter use.
I see. Which a lot of
Right now
senior
we use the
centers-
high school
Yeah.
as an emergency shelter, and that is still a very needed location, but when power goes out in Tom Nevers and it's out for a week and the school's reopened because there's power in town, we don't really have a place for those people to go. So just all of those things have been talked about as something that could be incorporated into the facility ultimately.
And do you already have like a consultant and all that jazz to kind of work with you on?
Well, there's an article for town meeting that appropriates $100,000 to really dig into the site layout at Sherburne Commons and the analysis of what the actual footprint will be and number of floors, that kind of thing.
I see.
And that will take into account the proposed usage and programming and stuff?
Yes, that is my understanding. I mean, $100,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it really is just a start.
Yes.
The ultimate planning will have to go much deeper.
Right.
And so,
Right.
so they've also talked about adding on to the Sherburne Commons where the current Pascon offices are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's some opportunity for that space, but it really needs complete reconfiguration and would need an addition. And I think ultimately it won't be large enough. But there could be some incorporation of a temporary use. But my opinion as one member of the board and of the select board is that a standalone facility that's completely designed as a senior center from the beginning is probably going to be the better option, with their own parking and just a little bit separated from the Sherburne Commons
And so
facility.
do you see that as potentially being a satellite spot while the Salt Marsh Center on Washington Street is small?
I think that's potential. I think we really have to analyze how much renovation would be needed and whether the money is best spent there for temporary. And we'd need to work it all out with Sherburne Commons, who's been, so far they've been extremely open to making this happen, but it has to make sense for them.
Right.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's really consistent with their kind of long-term vision of really making that the kind of the central place from which senior services kind of emanate and to which people go. So that'd really be ideal.
And there's definitely a need for satellite space now for programming at the
There
Salt Marsh.
is.
It'd be wonderful to have a dedicated spot for that
Yes.
while we're growing and waiting for what's happening next to happen.
Right, because we are, we're probably a few years away from even breaking ground on a building
Wow.
with the amount of planning that you need to do and the way government works. At least 2.
Geez, it seemed like government works pretty well here. It seems like it moves right along.
you think so?
I don't know. Well, you know, compared to a lot of places I go to, right?
Wow.
But that's good to hear.
Yeah, that's true.
thank you.
That's really true. Well, it's pretty cohesive. So you've got town meeting coming. Anything else coming that would be of interest to seniors here?
And we're continuing to work on the island home and what the future is there. But there will be more to come on that.
I was just going to say.
Once we get the analysis more underway, a firm's been chosen
To kind of do the analysis?
to do the analysis of building on site.
I see. And is there any sense of what the timing on that would be in terms of the, you know, when you'd be getting
I'm hoping we'll
public meetings or results or whatever?
have some understanding of what we might be able to bring to next year's town meeting,
Yes.
next April.
So they won't be looking for a fall town meeting to deal with the island home?
I don't think we'll be there yet to have an article ready,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully we'll have a direction by fall to be able to really propose something and do the outreach for spring.
So the article that's, the finance article that talks about Sherburne Commons is something that should still be supported by people who want to see the senior center built, correct?
Absolutely. And it's the discussion about the programming and the space needs will be viable on any site,
Great, yeah.
even if it was going into an existing building.
Yeah, and even if it were to go to Nantucket Inn, the same, you're running a parallel process here with that.
Yes.
Great.
We want to keep both potentials on track to be able to get to the ultimate goal of having a senior center within the next few years.
Timing is everything these days,
And
yeah.
it takes a long time to build something.
It's got to be a challenge to be doing that at the same time you're trying to figure out the island home, because those are both obviously really big projects. You know, they're both,
Yes.
they're big money projects, you know, and they have a major effect on the community, right? So trying to pull it all off that's going to be a real
Yeah,
challenge.
we've had so many large projects.
I don't want them to compete with each other either.
Right.
Both of these things are needed.
Right. So now, I'm just curious, can I just ask, because, you know, you've been a selectman now for a while, and obviously you're dealing with folks all the time who are seniors here. What is your sense as a selectman of kind of like, what are seniors looking for? What's good and bad about what seniors have here? What do you think the future should look like? Just curious, I'm just curious. Because I noticed from coming here, obviously there's a senior population that just kind of keeps on growing, right?
Right. I think more and more people are choosing to retire here, and
For good reason, I have to say. You know, it's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And as I always tell folks when I'm here, you know, you kind of don't realize that if you're not living on the island, how cohesive it is. You know, when you're here, it maybe feels like it isn't, but compared to any normal place, right, where there's all these competing interests, I think it's just this sense of people, they know they're on the island, and if it's not here, it's just too far to get to, right, to get anything. And so people seem to like really look out for each other, which is great, right?
yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that we need to expand our home health care services. I think we do need to redo the island home. We need a bigger senior center. I mean, we need all of these things that we've been talking about. I think that we will need, and probably may already need, some more dedicated to seniors affordable housing options. We have Landmark House and Academy Hill, and they're full.
There's full, and there's a pretty long waiting list.
And it's
Yeah, it seems
it's
to-
harder for people to downsize here to stay. There's just not as many available options.
There's just not
for
a lot
that.
of options.
Yeah.
Right.
And Sherburne Commons, I believe, is full too.
I'm pretty sure they're full too,
Yeah.
or, you know, where they need to be anyway.
Yeah, that's been an amazing transition.
Yes,
Right, from years. And
absolutely.
you remember the first years that I was coming over, who was the person? Who was the executive director for many years?
Chuck Gifford?
Chuck, yes. And he'd talk about it, you know, and he'd say, you know, just they got this wonderful facility, but there just were no people, right? And I think he was so delighted when the nonprofit kind of started evolving. And it's just been, it seems like it's been a slam dunk in terms of its, you know, they're at capacity, I think.
Well, I think it took so long for them to get the permitting to build it, and then when it was completed or almost completed is when the market sort
When
of
it-
took a dive.
Right.
So it was a challenge to make that up afterward. There are a lot of challenges in there, but it looks great.
And I think, once again, from my having seen a lot of places on the mainland, this notion, I think the fact that it's now controlled by a nonprofit, I think it seems like has changed the whole tenor of the place too. I mean, because people are really focused on what they're looking for, like with the Island Home. As I always tell my friend Alison, you know, that at other places, I always talk about the Island Home, right, and say, you know, this is actually, from my experience, the best nursing home I've ever been to, not because it's like beautiful, right, but because it's like the right size. It's the right size and it's like locally controlled, right, and so it just works well.
Yeah, it definitely works well.
It works really well. So how much is on the warrant article? This is warrant article number 10.
Number 10.
Number 10.
We confirmed that it's actually $150,000.
It's $150,000.
appropriation.
And that's
right.
coming from what budget? Is that coming from some other established fund or just the general fund?
I can't remember
Oh.
if it's coming from the general fund or from free cash.
Same thing, really.
And how many?
It's all coming out of
Yeah.
Once again, just as a curiosity, how many people typically go to town meeting here? Is it like 1,000? Is it 100? Because I know many towns, it's really, you know, people just have trouble getting a quorum. Are there usually pretty good attendance here?
600 on a good day.
600?
On a very good day.
Yeah, sometimes
have
it dips to.
A quorum issue
Yeah.
for the fall town meeting.
For the fall town meeting, but spring usually people show up.
It depends on what the
Depends on what's
hot
there.
topic is.
Well, I'm sorry that I'm going to miss the town meeting, but thank you very, very much for finding this wonderful person for us to talk to.
You're welcome.
Thank you very, very much for coming
You're
on.
welcome.
This was
Thanks
really
for having
educational.
me.
I think it'll help people, and I hope it'll help you when you head to town meeting, and you should head to town meeting. This is a really important topic, right? The senior center. If you haven't been there, it is a little crowded, and so I think this could really be a wonderful thing for the community. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Arthur.
And thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary on Nantucket. Thank you very much.